What do you mean? Did Rebecca throw it away? This happened at the birthday party for my son's wife, Rebecca. It was a surprise birthday party planned by me, Richard, and Rebecca's dad, John. John mentioned he'd be arriving later that day. Happy birthday, Rebecca! Thank you. I can't believe Katie and Richard did this for me. Her cheeks blushed with joy as she looked at the lavish spread of food I had prepared. I don't usually drink, but I think I can make an exception today. She happily started eating the food, although she never cooked herself and always acted like a princess, enjoying meals prepared by others. After we had eaten a bit, I reached into my bag and pulled out a small package. It was wrapped in pretty blue paper with a For You sticker on it. Rebecca, here is your birthday present. Open it. When I handed it to her, she just looked at it and sneered. Oh, is this from Katie? Looks like a gift card. How useless, it's practically trash. With that, she took the package and threw it into the nearby empty trash can. Rebecca, Mom put a lot of thought into picking this out for you. Even if you don't want it, there's a better way to refuse. Don't yell at me like that. As we were arguing, the doorbell rang and John arrived. Is everything okay? Did she get the present? Wait, present from Dad? John glanced at the package in the trash can and looked shocked. What is this? Oh, that? I threw it away earlier. I thought it was trash. What are you talking about? John raised his voice and explained the situation. When she learned the truth, Rebecca turned pale and started making excuses, but it was too late. And then she found out the truth she had never known before. My name is Katie. I'm a 63-year-old housewife. When my son Richard turned 4, my husband Charles passed away in a car accident, so I've been raising Richard alone ever since. Of course, working and raising a child was incredibly challenging, beyond words. Richard often caught colds, and I was frequently asked to pick him up from preschool. Each time, I had to ask my colleagues and bosses to cover for me, which they did. My job couldn't be done remotely, so even with a shortened workday, I could only leave at 4 p.m. My workplace was about 30 minutes from home, and the commute always felt long. When Richard started elementary school, he was always alone when he got home. I tried my best to make sure he didn't feel lonely, cherishing our time together after I got home. Richard, what did you learn in school today? Well, we had music class, and we sang this song. As he spoke, he pulled out his music textbook to show me. He pointed to a children's song. Oh, I know this song too. Richard seemed to enjoy music class, and every Thursday during the third period, he would tell me about it, and I would listen attentively, nodding. Richard seemed a bit physically weaker than other kids, but I thought his artistic sensitivity might be more developed, so I watched his growth closely. When Richard became a middle schooler and then a high schooler, he joined the music club and formed a band with a few friends, enjoying his student life. Eventually, he started a part-time job and used the money he saved to buy a guitar, spending weekends at the studio with his friends. Seeing Richard lively and passionate was heartwarming, but there was also a slight feeling of sadness as I could sense him drifting away from his parents. After graduating from high school, he got a job and distanced himself even more from me. Although he still had a weak constitution, he managed to work diligently at a small factory. Richard, don't overdo it, okay? I know, I'm fine. I'm off. As he said this and walked out the front door, his back somehow resembled Charles's. I remembered hearing that Charles also had a tendency to catch colds easily as a child. He said it was nothing when he became an adult, but now I wondered if Richard might be the same. Still, I couldn't help but feel that I could have raised him to be stronger. Reflecting on that made me feel a bit inadequate. As time passed, Richard turned 30 and married his girlfriend, Rebecca. When Richard brought up the topic of marriage, I was truly surprised and worried about how her family would accept him, given that we didn't have a dad in our household. However, my worries were unfounded. Rebecca's dad, John, was a kind-hearted man who warmly welcomed their marriage. When Richard visited us, His polite language left a strong impression. I thought he was a very sincere person. John later said this with a smile, and both he and I believed that this was a very harmonious marriage. Rebecca quit her job after getting married, but later started working part-time. Because his salary was less than she had expected. Rebecca liked wearing brand-name clothes, dining at fancy restaurants, and going to spas, so she was often dissatisfied. I thought I could relax as a housewife, but it turned out like this. It's all his fault for earning so little. Whose fault is it, really? She would often sigh and take a mocking attitude toward both Richard and me. I'm sorry, I'll try harder. I'm tired of hearing that. Rebecca, please listen. I've always had a weak constitution. That's a lie. It can't be true. It must have been Katie's fault for not raising you properly. Did she even feed you enough? Stop talking bad about Mom. Listening to this argument was painful. It's true that I might not have fed him enough. I know saying I did my best sounds presumptuous. Rebecca probably didn't mean any harm, but hearing her words made me realize I hadn't raised Richard to be as strong as he could have been. While carrying these uneasy feelings, one day in the approaching fall, I received surprising news from Rebecca. It happened when they visited our house. By then, they had moved out of their parents' home and lived in a nearby apartment. Although it was a bit small, Richard's salary was enough to afford it, and the building was relatively new and clean. Even after moving, they would occasionally come to see me, and I thought that day would be just another routine visit. Katie, I have wonderful news. I'm pregnant. She said this with a beaming smile, and I was both surprised and overjoyed, unsure of what words to offer. Congratulations. I can't believe I'm going to be a grandmother so soon. As I realized I would finally become a grandma, I felt tears welling up in my eyes. Richard, too, couldn't contain his excitement and emotion. I'm just as surprised, but really happy about it. Apparently, they had just come back from the hospital, and Richard had just found out about the pregnancy a little while ago. Rebecca, gently rubbing her belly, looked up at me and said cheerfully, "And, Katie, what is it? Isn't there something you should give me now? You know, like a gift or something." I didn't immediately understand what kind of gift she was referring to. I had heard of giving a gift after a child is born. However, she was only just pregnant and not even showing yet, so could she be asking for a pregnancy gift already? I held back the words. A gift for what? I decided to nod politely instead. Well, yes. It was such sudden news. I haven't prepared anything yet. I'm sorry. I'll get you something next time. That day, I treated them to dinner and then saw them off. About a week later, I got a call from Rebecca. Katie, I'm not feeling well. Could you come over and help with some chores? Oh no, that's terrible. I'll be right over. I remembered how tough it was when I was pregnant, feeling heavy and tired. With the thought of helping her as much as I could, I quickly got ready and headed to her apartment. However, when I arrived, she seemed fine, casually lounging on the sofa, scrolling through her phone. When Rebecca noticed me, she quickly hid her phone and started acting lethargic. Katie, you're here. Thank you so much. Ignoring her, I put down my bags and started with the cleaning and laundry. At first, I was happy to help her, but as Rebecca's belly grew, her demands escalated. It wasn't just cleaning and laundry anymore. She also had me cooking and grocery shopping, eventually giving me lists to buy everyday items. Rebecca, being pregnant isn't an illness. Can't you try doing some things on your own? When I protested, she clearly got upset and pretended to cry. Katie, don't be so mean. I'm carrying your grandchild. Shouldn't you be doing more for your adorable grandchild? She would also say things like, I'm feeling so down, or I'm so nauseous I could throw up, blaming me for various things. I truly wanted to help for the sake of my grandchild, but it felt like I was being treated like a housekeeper. Feeling frustrated, I went to their apartment as usual. I opened the door and walked in, finding no one in the living room. I heard the sound of water from the shower room. Realizing Rebecca was in the shower, I placed the groceries in the kitchen and started vacuuming the floor. Then, Rebecca's phone on the living room table buzzed. The screen, facing up, showed a friendly text from a man. "Can't wait to see you again, Rebecca. When are you free next?" the text read. Seeing this, I felt suspicious. It was clear that this text wasn't from Richard. After confirming Rebecca was still in the shower, I took a photo of the text with my phone. Not daring to unlock her phone, I quietly continued with the cleaning and preparing dinner. About half a month had passed, and I realized that Rebecca's birthday was approaching. So, I decided to plan a surprise birthday party for her without her knowing, and after discussing it with Richard, we also decided to invite John. "Thank you, Mom. Rebecca loves surprises, so she'll definitely be happy." "I hope so. I'll make lots of healthy dishes. I'll contact John myself." "I can't wait." Both Richard and I were eagerly looking forward to that day. Planning for such an occasion is always exciting. One day, after returning home from their apartment, I discovered an envelope in my mailbox. In the empty lot next door, the cicadas were singing. Hearing their sorrowful sound, I took out the contents of the envelope and looked at it carefully. I knew it. I muttered to myself, put the contents back in the envelope, and felt a little down. Then, trying to change my mood, I opened the front door and went inside. And then, the day of the birthday party arrived. Richard, Rebecca, and I gathered at the apartment. John would be arriving later. "Happy birthday, Rebecca!" Since we were in an apartment, we didn't use party poppers out of consideration for the neighbors. I thought someone might complain, but Rebecca, perhaps feeling superior as the star of the day, didn't seem to mind. "Thank you. I can't believe Katie and Richard planned such a surprise for me." Blushing with joy, she looked at the many lavish dishes I had prepared. "I can't drink alcohol, but it's nice to have something like this once in a while." Eating happily, I thought how she always acted like a princess, never cooking herself. After we had eaten most of the meal, I took out a small package from my bag. It was wrapped in a cute blue wrapping paper with a sticker that said "For You" on it. "Rebecca, here's your birthday present. Open it." When I handed it to her, Rebecca looked at it briefly and sneered. "Is this from Katie? It looks like a gift card, but this kind of thing is just trash." She then grabbed the package and, unbelievably, threw it into a nearby empty trash can. While I was in shock, she laughed and held out her hand. "I'd rather have cash." I was so stunned, I couldn't speak. She prefers cash over a present? But that gift was. While I was too shaken to say anything, Richard spoke up first. "Rebecca, Mom put a lot of thought into choosing that gift for you. Can't you at least say thank you? Even if you don't like it, there's a better way to refuse." "Don't yell at me like that. It hurts my stomach." "It's your fault, Richard." Rebecca pretended to be scared and clutched her stomach, crouching down. Realizing that she intended to play the victim, I felt a sudden chill and couldn't bear to look at her anymore. Just then, the doorbell rang. Everyone's attention turned to the door, and I hurried to answer it, finding John there. "Good evening, sorry I'm late." He stood there with a smile, scratching his head shyly. "Thank you for inviting me to Rebecca's birthday." I welcomed him with a smile. No, thank you for coming. Rebecca and Richard are both waiting for you." As John walked in, he seemed to sense something strange, looking puzzled. "Hey, Rebecca. Your belly is really showing now. I'm so happy to celebrate your birthday with you. It seemed like there was some commotion earlier. Is everything okay? Did you get the gift?" "Huh? Present from Dad?" Rebecca couldn't hide her surprise at the unexpected guest, but what was to come would shock her even more. John suddenly noticed the discarded wrapping paper in the trash can. "What's this?" It was the wrapping Rebecca had just thrown away, and John looked at it in disbelief. Rebecca, however, responded childishly. "Oh, that. I threw it away earlier. Thought it was trash." "What do you mean?" You threw it away. John pressed Rebecca firmly. What? What do you mean? Isn't that the gift card Katie got? What are you talking about? John snapped and explained the situation. When we were planning this birthday party, I had a phone call with John about the gift. John remembered that Rebecca had always wanted to go on a trip abroad, and he suggested giving her tickets for her birthday. I agreed, and we decided to buy the tickets together and present them at this party. That was the wrapped item from earlier. Upon realizing this, Rebecca's face turned pale, and she began to fumble for excuses. I wasn't told anything about this, and I didn't know. You didn't know? You can't even say thank you? I calmed John down and said, Well, John. We have other gifts for her too. I signaled Richard, who pulled an envelope from under the table and handed it to Rebecca. Rebecca, this is from me, he said in a low voice, avoiding her gaze as she took the envelope. She looked inside suspiciously and was instantly speechless. Inside was the result of an investigation into Rebecca's infidelity. Mom told me, Rebecca, you've been cheating, haven't you? She showed me pictures of notifications from your phone screen. I had shown Richard those photos on a day when I visited this apartment while Rebecca was in the shower. I then advised him to hire a detective to investigate. Of course, I arranged for the envelope to be sent to our home, not this apartment, so Rebecca wouldn't find out. The investigation confirmed that Rebecca was indeed cheating, and the other person was also married. Rebecca trembled as she stared at the documents. I didn't want to believe it either, and I didn't want it to come to this. But if you apologize, Rebecca, I'll let it go. Before Richard could finish, she slammed the papers onto the table and defiantly said, Yes, he's a colleague from work. He's very supportive and kind, so I ended up having a relationship with him. The baby I'm carrying is probably his. What? Richard was deeply hurt by her blunt words, momentarily taken aback. The timing suggests so, but what of it? Everyone thought this child was their grandchild anyway, right? So why not just go with that? Rebecca showed no remorse, nor did she apologize. The one who couldn't stand the situation and got angry was not Richard, but John. Rebecca, how could you do such a thing? John's face turned beet red, and he was trembling with rage. It seemed he was about to grab her, but he was desperately trying to hold back. Both Richard and I were so shocked by his intense anger that we couldn't move. John, what on earth? That was all I could manage to say. John's anger had reached its peak. Rebecca, I wish I could have told you differently, but there's no other way now. The truth is, you are actually the child of my ex-wife's affair. What? When she tried to abandon you, I took you in as my own daughter and raised you by myself. So, you and I are not biologically related. I wanted to keep this hidden. Everyone present was stunned by John's painful revelation. Rebecca had ended up doing the same thing as her mother, hurting both her husband, Richard, and John. John, who had been betrayed by both his beloved wife and the daughter he raised, must have been in deep shock. John said bitterly, I can no longer think of you as my daughter. I'm severing all ties with you. Rebecca, with a look of shock on her face, could only stare at John. No, why? Of course, neither Richard nor I could find any words to say to them, and we just stood there. Feeling that there was no way to continue in a celebratory mood, I decided to end the gathering for the day. John awkwardly left, telling me he would contact me later. By the way, the results of the investigation were also sent to the home of the affair partner. His wife was furious and confronted Rebecca, demanding a settlement later. Rebecca had assumed that her affair partner would naturally take her side, but a few weeks later, he quit his job and told Rebecca not to contact him anymore. He also said he would not acknowledge the child. In a panic, she turned to me to help reconcile with Richard, but I firmly refused. Considering her attitude after finding out about the pregnancy and her defiant demeanor when everything was revealed that night, I didn't think she was genuinely remorseful. Of course, Richard seemed to share John's opinion. Rebecca, it's over. I can't trust you anymore. I'll be moving out of this apartment soon, so you should prepare to leave as well. And I will be claiming compensation in the divorce court. Richard reportedly handed her the divorce papers as he said this. She faced a large financial claim, which would likely exhaust all her savings from her working days. Moreover, she would lose the funds needed for childbirth and child-rearing, and even if she worked, it would be difficult to pay it all off. Richard, please, I want to get back together with you. You're the only one I can rely on. Unable to return to John's place, she clung to Richard, pleading for reconciliation, but Richard coldly brushed her off. Sorry, I don't want to be involved anymore. The following month, Rebecca moved out of the apartment. Richard moved into my place, and Rebecca stayed temporarily at a hotel. Later, Rebecca, heavily pregnant, came to our place, just as Richard and I had finished loading our moving truck. Wait, where are you moving? I want to come with you. The movers seemed to think she was moving too and paused their work, but I told them not to worry about it, and the truck's back door closed mercilessly. Don't tell me. Just don't ever show yourself in front of me again. Richard didn't even make eye contact with her and got into my car. We followed the moving truck to our next residence. In the rearview mirror, I saw Rebecca running desperately after us, but she soon got out of breath and sat down. Being pregnant, she must have realized she couldn't chase after us any further, and she stared at us in disbelief. There's a saying about reaping what you sow, and this must be the consequence she has to face. Her life and the life of her unborn child would be filled with rough waters, but I couldn't muster any sympathy. Later, I also met and talked with John. John constantly expressed his apologies to me and Richard. I thought I raised Rebecca properly, but it seems I only thought so. I feel terrible for what Richard went through. Please forget about Rebecca and me, and live your life. We moved out of the house the following week, but during that time, Richard seemed to be in a somber mood, contemplating something. While driving to our new place, Richard suddenly said, Mom, I'm thinking of starting a band. Just as a hobby, not professionally. I thought he'd be heartbroken over the divorce, but seeing him trying to move forward in his own way, I felt relieved. That sounds great. You've always loved music. It's wonderful to immerse yourself in something you love. In the back seat of the car, Richard's guitar case from high school seemed to be looking at him. Through the windshield, the high, clear autumn sky was brilliantly blue. At our new place, Richard and I were ready to start anew. Late at night on a snowy road, my young granddaughter Harper came to our house, carrying an unfamiliar baby on her small back. What on earth was going on? Lost for words. Dad said to go borrow hospital money, Harper told me in a faint voice. In response, That's impossible, my husband Thomas exclaimed. Ignoring my surprise at his harsh words, Thomas took astonishing action. My name is Madison. Recently, the stairs have become a real challenge for me, a 63-year-old. Thomas, 65, just retired from work. We talk about wanting to do various things now that it's just the two of us. For starters, to fend off declining strength, I'm thinking of walking every day. Fortunately, we're in a bit of the countryside here, with few cars and people, and the air is fresh. It's the perfect place for a walk. I thought retirement life might be lonely, but it's not really. That's because my daughter Lily's family lives nearby. Lily is 35 and a mom to one child. My granddaughter Harper, just turned into a first grader at 6 years old, is absolutely adorable. Lily's husband Daniel is a bit gruff and seems to avoid our place. But, well, if the family relationship is good, I try not to mind. Lily and her husband have Lily as the breadwinner working hard, with Daniel being a house husband. I'm proud of my daughter, but I worry it might be too much for her. If it were Lily as the housewife, I'd want to help in any way I can, but with Daniel, it's not so easy. Too much meddling might be seen as annoying. And yet, doing nothing and just leaving them be makes me feel uneasy about the right distance. Then, one day, something unsettling happened. Returning from shopping, I found Harper in front of the house unexpectedly. It's not too far for a child to walk from Lily's home to ours, but it's a fair distance. Moreover, Harper was carrying her school backpack. Wearing a backpack too big for her small first-grade self, Harper had come over after school. And it was on a hot day just before the summer break. "Well, Harper, what's wrong?" "Dad said I couldn't go into the house, so I came here." "What?" Confused about what was going on, but seeing Harper's pale face, I quickly let her inside to cool down. Thomas had gone out when I went shopping, so no one was home. I wonder how long she had been here. Harper drank the cold juice I offered her in one go. "Mom is at work, but why did Dad say you couldn't go inside?" "I don't know, but he said it's because he's busy." "Huh? Too busy to let her into her own house?" That's absurd. And to lock her out in such scorching heat. Anger welled up inside me. "Once you're feeling better, let's go back together with Grandma. I'll talk to Dad. I've been holding back because he's my daughter's husband, but this is simply unacceptable. This is something that can't be kept silent." Harper nodded, and as we headed home, the front door suddenly opened before we could ring the doorbell. "Bye then," said a strange woman, waving as she left. Who was that? Surprised by the sudden event, Harper and I watched the woman walk away. Rushing into the entrance, I found Daniel with a shocked expression. "Daniel, you locked Harper out, and then what? You had a woman over while Lily was away?" Furious at me, Daniel frowned. "What?" And he grumpily responded. "Don't just come here and start accusing me of nonsense. That was just a sales lady. I told her we didn't need a water purifier, but she was persistent, so I was just getting rid of her." "A sales lady?" "Yes," said Daniel, turning his back. "Then why lock Harper out because you were busy?" "Oh, I was in the middle of something I couldn't step away from. Lily asked me to fix a shelf, but it was bad timing, and I was tied up." "Hey, Harper," said Daniel, calling Harper over. Harper trembled. "Kid, I told you to wait, didn't I? Why didn't you wait instead of going over there?" "I did wait, but it was too hot, and you never let me in." "If I said wait, you should wait. Don't make things difficult. Hey!" I couldn't stay silent, seeing Harper scared by the harsh words. "But don't start with me, Madison. I'm the one raising Harper. I'd appreciate it if you didn't interfere with how we raise our child." He glared at me. Indeed, as a grandmother, I remembered not wanting outsiders to meddle in my parenting. Being told not to interfere by someone with parenting experience left me speechless. "Thank you, Grandma," said Harper, waving goodbye, which made me feel melancholy. My concerns about whether everything was truly okay proved correct. Similar incidents happened repeatedly afterward. I couldn't stay silent and contacted Lily, but Daniel takes care of the house, allowing me to focus on my work. We couldn't live without my job, so I'm grateful to Daniel. I trust him with child rearing, so please don't interfere." She scolded me in response. Taking a leap, I mentioned the woman leaving their house. "Why worry? It must have been a salesperson. They target the countryside thinking there are more elderly people around here. They're persistent even though we've said no multiple times." She seemed unconcerned. Yet, a noticeable change occurred in Lily's home. As summer break began, Harper's visits to our house became more frequent. Dad says to stay outside, or he'll skip meals for me. What? It seems that when Lily was away on business trips, Daniel would lock Harper out. It's not feasible to spend every day at a friend's house during summer break. Nor is it realistic to kill time in the park due to the excessive heat. No lunch and no dinner if she disobeys. That's too cruel. I couldn't help but exclaim in anger. I can't stand it anymore. Grandma will talk to Dad and Mom for you. I clenched my fist, ready to lecture them. Please don't. Harper quickly intervened. If you do that, Dad will get in a bad mood again. And Mom is busy with work. It'll just cause more trouble. Could this really be the words of a first grader? To worry so much about their parents' feelings at such an age. It's heartbreaking. I decided to have a serious talk with Lily. But when I tried calling, she was too busy to speak. What to do? As summer ended and autumn passed, the cold season arrived swiftly. I wonder how they're doing. Staring out at the falling snow from inside my house, I muttered to myself. Harper, now 7, had suddenly stopped coming by. Their absence was worrying in its own way. And there was no way to contact Lily at all. Even if they thought it a nuisance, perhaps I should visit their house. With that thought, I gazed aimlessly outside. What? Surprised by what I saw, I hurriedly dashed outside. What's going on? Thomas's puzzled voice went unheard as I forgot to even put on my coat and rushed out. Harper? There stood Harper, in front of the house. Despite the snow brightening the night, it was nearly midnight, about to change dates. No time for a school-aged child to roam. Yet there he stood, shivering in the cold, even with a coat. Could he have walked from their house in this snow? Even in the countryside, it's not like cars never pass by. The thought of slipping on the snowy road was terrifying. What are you doing here at this hour? No, never mind that. Come inside quickly. I reached for Harper's hand, but he shook their head. Harper? I need money. Huh? Please lend me some money. What? At that unexpected request, I was shocked. Then, from his back, the sound of a baby crying. What? Surprise after surprise left me nearly speechless. Hastily checking, I saw a baby, bundled up against the cold, being carried on Harper's back. Wait, a baby? What? Why? I hadn't heard anything about Lily being pregnant. If the baby was being carried, it meant they were at least 4 months old, having grown enough to support their head. But for those 4 months, and even before, there was no sign of Lily being pregnant or giving birth. What's going on? I yelled, forgetting we were outside in the middle of the night. What are you doing? Get inside now. Thomas had come out to see what was happening and scolded us, snapping me out of my panic. Quickly, I brought him and the baby inside. In the warm room, I gave him something warm to drink and made sure the baby wasn't cold. Initially, I need to get back quickly, or Dad will, he said, but after drinking warm milk and feeling the warmth, finally showed a relieved expression. What happened? Tears quickly filled and spilled from his eyes. Dad said we don't have any money, so he told me to borrow some hospital money from Grandma and Grandpa. What do you mean? Hospital money? The baby seems to have a fever. What? Touching the baby's forehead, it was indeed slightly warm. But being a baby, their body temperature is higher, so it's hard to tell for sure. You know, this child is Dad's. Then, Lily's? No, not Mom's child. What? I was utterly confused by the situation. Confused, Harper spoke with a downcast expression. Mom has been coming home late because of important work lately. She's been on a business trip since yesterday, so I'm on my own. I see. Then today, this lady brought over the baby. She's an important client of Dad's, and he told me to take care of the baby because he's busy. He said it's his child, so take good care of it. This was supposed to be a secret. I'm sorry, I'll get scolded if it's found out I told you it's Dad's child. Exhausted from shouting, I let out a defeated sigh. What is going on? So, I told Dad the baby seemed in pain, and he and the lady said to take the baby to the hospital. They're too busy, and they don't have the money, so they told me to borrow it from you. Were you kicked out after saying that? Yeah. Daniel is the worst. I couldn't help but shout. Grandma ended up shouting for Harper. Calm down. Thomas scolded me. Then, Harper turned to Thomas, my husband, and Harper's grandfather. Harper finds the usually taciturn Thomas a bit intimidating. Well, he does seem grumpy all the time. But Harper, trying their best, hesitantly asked Thomas, Grandpa, please, can you lend us the money for the baby's hospital bill? Tears welling up in their eyes. Thomas, can't you make a kinder face, I thought, but then. That's impossible. He barked. Why speak in such a manner? Unable to hold back any longer, Harper burst into tears. Yet, the baby looks in pain, please. She bravely continued. At this point, it doesn't matter whose child the baby is. Just as I was about to say something to Thomas, thinking we couldn't abandon Harper and the baby. Call a taxi. Thomas spoke up before I could. What? Don't dawdle, do it now. Yes. I hurriedly called a taxi, and following Thomas's instructions, I took them to the pediatric emergency department. I won't lend money, but you, a child, don't need to go to the hospital. An old hand at child rearing like your grandma will take you, so rest assured. And I'm going to prepare a bath now, Harper. You go warm up in the bath, got it? Thomas declared with an authoritative tone. Both Harper and I could only nod in agreement. Upon arrival at the hospital, the baby was seen immediately. The doctor suggested the fever might be due to the cold. We were advised to keep the baby calm and received some medicine for the baby. Since the baby's identity was unknown, we couldn't use health insurance. The doctor was also surprised. We ended up paying a considerable amount. Normally, the cost for a baby's medical consultation and medication would be very low in this area. Is that more on Daniel saying he doesn't even have that? I'll make him pay later. My anger grew even more. By the time we got home, it was already past midnight, and Harper, who had been waiting up with Thomas, had fallen asleep. When I returned with the baby, Harper woke up in a panic. How's the baby? She asked. Worrying about others even in such a situation, what a kind child. I couldn't help but tear up. So, Thomas, instead of looking so grumpy, show a smile and reassure them. But, surprisingly, Harper hugged the serious-faced Thomas. Looking on in astonishment, I saw Harper smiling. Grandpa, the baby's okay. That's good, right? You were worried. Fool, why would I worry about someone else's baby? But you were worried. You kept asking if I was cold or hungry, or if you should read me a storybook. You cared a lot. There's no such person like me. Harper innocently reported Thomas's behavior. Oh, that was you, I said, laughing, which made Thomas look even grumpier, though his cheeks relaxed. The next day, Thomas acted before I could. He first called Lily. What, Dad? I'm busy at work right now. Come home right now. You idiot! He shouted and hung up the phone. Then he made another call. What is it, Thomas? Did Harper go to your place okay? How's the baby? Daniel answered, sounding groggy. To think he could sleep peacefully after sending 2 young children out into the heavy snow in the middle of the night. Get over here right now, you idiot! He shouted again before hanging up. Right before that, he yelled one more thing. Bring the woman you're with right now too. Or be prepared for what's coming. Such intensity. I could imagine Daniel turning pale on the other end of the phone. A few hours later, Lily returned from her business trip, wondering what had happened. Daniel arrived almost at the same time as Lily, along with another woman. The 3 of them sat in front of Thomas, who stood with his arms crossed. The woman with Daniel seemed familiar. Ah, the sales lady from before. Yes, she was the woman who had left the house when Harper was locked out during the summer. Ah, I think I understand what's going on now. Lily, looking uncomfortable, lifted her face. Dad, what's all this? Shut your mouth! Yes. Lily knew when Thomas was angry, he was really angry. And straightened up at his word. Why am I here? Daniel, still unfamiliar with how intimidating Thomas could be, asked reluctantly. So, Thomas crouched down. And gave a glare that made Daniel say, No, nothing. Daniel, you shouldn't underestimate Thomas's intensity. Well, here's a thick envelope, Thomas said, pulling out an envelope. Inside were 4-sized documents. The results of an investigation into Daniel's background. What? The shock was voiced by everyone but Thomas. Of course, I was surprised too. When did you arrange for something like this? When Harper was locked out in the middle of summer, and you said you saw the sales lady. And you appear in it, huh? Hernandez? What? At that, the woman let out a strange noise. Well, it's obvious, isn't it? You're not a sales lady but Daniel's mistress, right? What? Lily was the one surprised by Thomas's words. Did she really believe this woman was just a sales lady? Too naive. Daniel and the woman named Hernandez looked awkward. Daniel's living the life, huh? Letting Lily work while he enjoys days of affairs at home. Kicking Harper out and doing who knows what. What are you talking about? The moment Daniel tried to play dumb, Thomas hit the floor. The floor cracked and Daniel flinched. Oops, my bad. Thought I saw a bug, Thomas said, blowing on his fist. But seriously, Thomas, fix the floor later. Sorry, didn't catch that. So, the woman beside you is your mistress, right? That is, right? Thomas glared at Daniel with a menacing look. Yes, she's my mistress. Daniel turned away, sweating profusely. Huh? You've been making me work while you cheat? Talking about protecting the home and child, and you've protected nothing. Lily stood up in shock and anger. Sit down for now. Yes. But at Thomas's command, Lily sat down promptly. Hernandez, you're married too, right? What? The woman looked up in surprise, at the same time. Huh? Was Daniel's reaction. You said you were single, didn't you? Was that a lie? I was planning to divorce. So, you're not divorced yet? Ridiculous. Don't you dare act all high and mighty when you have a wife and child yourself. What a mess. A woman who knew she was dealing with a married man, and a man cheating despite having a family. Just a typical argument between scumbags. Ah, don't tell me the baby isn't mine but your husband's? That is. I knew it was weird. I made sure it couldn't happen. The lowest of discussions was being had. The woman got angry at Daniel's anger. Shut up! Whether I'm married or whose child it is, it's none of your business. It was just a relationship seeking thrills. What did you say? That's enough. We're breaking up. Lily, I'm returning your husband to you. He's no longer my problem. What? Lily was confused by the sudden turn in the conversation. But then Thomas spoke solemnly. As if it ends with no hard feelings, goodbye. Indeed. Lily, what about the compensation? Compensation? Oh, for the divorce? We have plenty of evidence. If you want to claim compensation from both of them, I'll support you. Yes. Of course I will. Lily nodded energetically, finally understanding what she needed to do. What do you mean? Daniel, the only one not catching on, was told by Lily. I'm divorcing you. We'll be claiming compensation from both of you, and I'll also demand child support from Daniel, so be prepared. Huh? Why? I'm breaking up with this woman. There's no need to divorce. The only option for me is to divorce someone who can't understand that. No, wait a minute. I can't start working now. I don't care. Just so you know, housework is a legitimate job, you fool. It ended with Lily's sharp rebuke. So, Daniel and Hernandez hung their heads in shame. As things quieted down, Harper, who had been in another room, peeked out. Is the talk over? It's over. Come here to Mom, Harper. Lily, looking tired, reached out to Harper. Harper hurried over but didn't hug Mom, Lily. Instead, they bypassed her and hugged Thomas, who was standing to the side. Grandpa, I'm hungry. Ah, is that so? Well, then, let's have Grandpa make something. I want noodle. All right, I'll make some tasty one. Yay! They cheerfully headed to the kitchen, leaving behind this mess. Lily stood, unsure what to do with her extended hand. On the floor. It's not my fault! It's not my fault! Daniel muttered. What will I do if my husband finds out? While Hernandez, also dazed. I chuckled bitterly, hearing the baby cry, and went to tend to the infant, leaving the three behind. Afterward, with the help of a lawyer Thomas knew, Lily successfully divorced. Naturally, Lily retained custody of Harper, and a lump sum for compensation and child support was agreed upon. Daniel clung to her until the end, saying, It's because you were busy with work that I felt lonely. But you're the one who told me to work. Don't joke with me, Lily retorted. Despite claiming to have no money, Daniel's parents apologized and paid on his behalf. They said they would make him repay them over a lifetime, but it's doubtful such a distraught man could work properly. As expected, Daniel became a recluse, eventually kicked out by his family, and went missing, a typical end for him. As for Hernandez, her affair was discovered by her husband, leading to divorce. The baby was taken in by her husband, which is probably better for the child. To think both partners would cheat while on a business trip, with a baby in tow. Daniel and Hernandez? They were truly despicable. As for Lily, after a stern lecture from Thomas, she reflected deeply. I'll face my child properly, she declared firmly, so the future should be okay. But being a single mother will be tough, so she decided to live with us. Supporting Harper's upbringing will become our responsibility until they're grown. While thinking about the challenges of child rearing, I was actually looking forward to it. Life needs some excitement, I thought, looking at Thomas playing Othello with Harper, his face slack with enjoyment. Thomas is always gruff with Lily and me, but this incident revealed his tender side towards Harper. Even after years of marriage, there are still new sides to discover in one's partner, I thought, watching him with a smile.